in which country should I retire when moving to Southeast Asia? Which is the best country, Marcel, in terms of safety, cost of living, infrastructure, building a house, and of course dating, because dating is one of the most important reasons for many guys when they consider retiring in Southeast Asia. And this is what I'm gonna talk about in this video. But I will talk, of course, out of my own experience, and I will talk about the two countries which I actually recommend based on my experience. And these two countries are the Philippines and Indonesia. Yes, these are the countries I'm going to talk about in this video here today. I'm not going to talk about Thailand, even though I've traveled many Southeast Asian countries and I also lived inside these countries. I lived in Vietnam, I lived in Malaysia, I lived in Thailand, lived and worked there. I had a job there. But if you ask me directly, I would say it's gonna be either the Philippines or Indonesia. And even for me today, it's still 50-50. It's really, really hard to make up my mind, even though I release a lot of videos about Indonesia and dating Indonesian women, and that's okay because Indonesia is completely underrated, as I have stated so many times in other videos. But still, you know, it was a Filipina who was my first Southeast Asian girlfriend, and it was the Philippines actually which was my first experience in Southeast Asia. It was the first Southeast Asian country I really visited. So, and the same with Indonesia. Shortly after I dated Filipinas, I started to date Indonesian girls, you know. So these two countries and also these two experiences and the dating experiences with these girls and women, they have left a big mark, and therefore I'm still very, very closely attached to the Philippines today and Indonesia. Okay, both are very beautiful countries, beautiful nature, a very diverse landscape, even more in Indonesia than in the Philippines. Both countries have a lot of things to offer when it comes to nature. If you are a nature guy, then congratulations. Yeah, great beaches, great mountains, and other similarities we're gonna talk about in this video. But perhaps you already know, maybe you made up your mind, maybe you say, yeah, it's gonna be the Philippines for me. Thank you for doing this video, but I kind of made up my mind already, or maybe you are pretty sure already. Then I have some good news. There is a service available. It's called Filipino Visa. Yeah, so if you are somebody who is targeting the Philippines, then I want to recommend this service for you, because Filipino Visa will support you when it comes to consultations. You know, they offer consultations. They also assist you with dealing with the local agencies. Yeah, they also help you with flights, hotel bookings, and other travel and immigration matters. So it's a great service for newcomers, for people who want to settle, who want to start a new life in the Philippines. Filipino Visa will assist you with all these legal matters and many more things. You will find the link in the description, of course, and you can check out their service. So I mentioned already that the Philippines and Indonesia are very similar in many regards. This is because of their common culture, traditions, and mentality they share, because of their history. You know, they share a long history, basically. I mean, they were never really united, but you know, the Southeast Asian region is an area where these countries share a lot of cultural traits and characteristics. Even the language is very similar in some ways. So, and that goes back thousands of years, you know. But of course, in the previous, just recent few hundred years, the Philippines has been highly influenced by the Spaniards who, you know, colonized the country for a few hundred years, and then later by the Americans. And the Philippines is a predominantly Catholic country. This is one big difference to Indonesia. Indonesia was actually ruled by the Dutch, you know, colonized by the Dutch also for several hundred years. But before Islam was introduced to Indonesia, Hinduism was actually very prevalent and popular. So these are maybe the main differences, which also kind of affect the culture, of course, a little bit, you know. But why do I feel so comfortable with the Philippines and Indonesia? Because I mentioned it already. For me, it's the climate, the weather. You know, I hate cold. I hate winters. I cannot stand the cold season, and I just like it warm. So this is one thing. I mentioned the nature already. I'm a big nature lover. Nature is very important to me, be it beaches, mountains, hiking, swimming, waterfalls, volcanoes, you name it. I'm all in for these things. But of course, one of the main reasons why I prefer Indonesia and the Philippines is the low cost of living. I will talk about this a little bit later, the so-called low cost of living, but also the friendliness of the people, right? Indonesia and the Philippines are very, very similar in this regard, you know, very welcoming, warm-hearted people, yeah? They are way friendlier than the Germans, you know, like me, an old grumpy German guy. You know, the Germans are very famous for always being grumpy, so it's funny that I say that, you know. I moved to countries where people are friendlier than in my home country. So why can't I just be more friendly, right? That's a good question, but it's not the topic of today's video. And of course, one big factor is the dating experience in these countries. This is, again, one of the main reasons many men actually choose to move to the Philippines or to Indonesia, because of a completely different dating experience and other stuff we will talk about also in a short while. So let's talk about the things mentioned in the beginning. What about safety? So I would say, in my experience, and you know, I lived many years in Indonesia and I worked also in the Philippines. I lived in the Philippines. I traveled thousands of times to these countries. Yeah, so since 2006, so almost 20 years, I'm very familiar with both countries' cultures, dating, living, working, everything. Both countries, Philippines and Indonesia, are considered, I consider them safe countries, you know. They are not worse than any other countries in Europe, in my experience. But of course, you want to apply your common sense and use your common sense, which you hopefully have, right? If you just use your common sense in these countries, then nothing major really will happen to you. I always say, don't do stupid things you wouldn't do in your home country. So, for example, I'm from Berlin in Germany. It's a big city, 3.5 million people. So, and also in Berlin, in Germany, in this big city, you have certain areas you don't want to show up. You don't want to go, especially 2 a.m. in the morning, right? Because they are rough areas, you know, there's a lot of crime and a lot of sketchy characters and other roughnecks who are hanging around there. So what is the most common sense to do anyway? At 2 a.m. in the morning you sleep, right? But if you can't sleep, don't go to these areas. You know, you might get ripped off, you know. So it's the same in the Philippines or in Indonesia. You don't want to show up at 2 a.m. in the morning in some rough neighborhoods, you know, especially you as a foreigner, you know, who is considered rich anyway in this country. So, common sense. Yeah? What is actually the greatest risks in these countries in terms of safety and security? The greatest risks is not the Philippines or Indonesia or the high crime rate or some roughnecks there. No, the biggest risk is you. Yeah? Because it's gonna be your ignorance, yeah, and your common sense, which you maybe have but don't apply properly. Yeah? So don't do stupid things in the Philippines or Indonesia you wouldn't do in your home country. It's a no-brainer actually, but I mention it anyway. But just out of curiosity, I was researching the crime indexes of both countries, the Philippines and Indonesia, because I wanted to know. And there are several statistics out there, and I found one website where they show the entire all the countries of the world and their crime indexes. So here we go. I noted them down here. The Philippines has a crime index of 42.6, 42.6, okay? And Indonesia has a crime index of 45.9, so it's slightly higher. But just to give you the context now, the highest crime index actually has Venezuela with 81.1. So this is the highest on the scale. And the lowest country is Qatar in the Middle East with 14.3. So there you go, there you can see Indonesia and the Philippines, they are ranking very similar, and they're right in the middle of the scale, right? Do you want to know about the United States? The United States is ranking 49.2. It's even higher than the Philippines and Indonesia. Can you believe it? Yeah? That's what the statistics show. So that means the United States has a higher crime rate than Philippines or Indonesia. Surprise, surprise. China, 60.9. Yeah? So pretty high crime rate actually in China. Germany, 38. Pretty okay. Australia, I was surprised. The crime index in Australia is 46.7. This is even higher than in Indonesia. So anyway, what about Afghanistan? 78.4. I think we will understand why that is. Russia, 39.7. Believe it or not, yeah? Korea, 25.3, and Mexico, 54.1. So even Mexico is lower. No, sorry, the Mexico is a little bit higher than the United States. Anyway, so just for your information. Now let's talk about the cost of living, because most of the Western guys who will travel to these countries, not only Philippines or Indonesia, but also to Thailand and I don't know, Vietnam, they will say, the cost of living is so low in these countries, go there, move there. And yes, it's true, but it's tricky because from the perspective of the local people, the cost of living is not really low, you know. The cost of living seems only low when you have a hard currency income, a US dollar income, a euro income, British pound income, right? Of course, in Europe or in the Western countries, the salary is number one, way higher anyway, and then your currency is very strong. It's a hard currency, right? So when you earn like 3, 4, 5,000 US dollar, let's say net cash on your hand, tax-free, then you are rich in the Philippines and in Indonesia and in Thailand even. You can have a very, very good life, yeah? But an Indonesian factory worker or a Filipino call center worker or waitress or waiter or busboy, these folks, they are not earning 2, 3, 4,000 US dollar net per month. They earn maybe $200 net per month, maybe $400 net per month, maybe 500, you know? So you cannot really say, oh, it's low cost of living. For these Filipinos and these Indonesian people who are living in their own countries, it's expensive though, still today. But of course, if you compare the cost of living in the Philippines with the cost of living in Germany or America or Canada, of course, yeah. And the Philippines and Indonesia, they beat all these Western countries, that's true. But yeah, you need a hard currency income. You need income anyway. And I've done videos also about my cost of living in various Asian countries. You want to check them out if you're interested. And yes, of course, accommodation is affordable, food is way cheaper, gasoline is way cheaper, domestic transportation and travel is way cheaper than in Western countries. This is true. Yeah. If you have a hard currency income, yeah, and if you have plenty. Health insurance, yeah, you would have to obtain probably a health insurance in your home country. So this will be a little bit more costly, but the medical experience in both countries is great, especially in the Philippines. You know, I had to go to doctors, I had to see doctors, I had to go to hospitals in both countries, and there were no major issues. You know, the standard is actually at least okay, and even good to very good. You know, so no issues there. I mean, if you are a healthy guy and you take care of your health and everything, so you won't go to the hospitals much, right? But anyway, let's talk about the infrastructure. So yeah, infrastructure is a problem. Both are still like developing countries, right? And especially the Philippines is still suffering from a lousy infrastructure, I find. Indonesia is a little bit better in some regards. At least Indonesia has a full functioning and well-developed train system, but not in the entire country, only on the island of Java, which is the main island where most of the population also lives. But they have a full functioning train system, which can easily compete with the German train system. Because this year I used that train service a lot, and I was surprised how punctual the Indonesian trains are. It's unbelievable. They're even more punctual than the German trains. So that you have in certain parts of Indonesia, but you don't have a functioning train system in the Philippines. In Metro Manila, in the capital, you have a public transportation system. You have a mass, what is called MTR or MRT, yeah, mass rapid transit system in place, but this thing in Manila is breaking down, or it's 40 years old. This was installed and implemented by President Marcos way back in the 80s. So this is like, cannot accommodate the huge amount of people anymore. But besides of that, when you want to travel outside of outside of Manila, there's nothing except fragments of highways basically, and that's it, you know. Other than that, you have to use air travel. And it's very similar in Indonesia, so we don't need to talk about highways and stuff. Maybe in Jakarta you have a very nice highway system, actually much better than in Manila, but if you want to travel on a American style highway or German style autobahn, forget it, you know, so we have to know that. But anyway, these states are island countries, so most of the travel is either happening via plane or ferry, you know. For the people who want to save money, they use the ferry a lot. And of course you have a lot of traffic and pollution, yeah, in both countries, and especially in the big cities. And especially in the Philippines, you have a lot of brownouts. You have to consider this, you know, and therefore the internet connection might be not that stable at times. And this is something which is not happening so much in Indonesia. But the brownout thing in the Philippines can be very annoying and messy at times, especially if you run a business and you rely on a stable internet connection, right? Let's talk building a house. People ask me, how is it with building a house in the Philippines and Indonesia? So I would like to refer these guys to other videos on YouTube. There are guys who have built a house already in the Philippines or in Indonesia maybe even, and you want to check out these videos, because I haven't built a house yet, but all I know is that you cannot own land neither in the Philippines nor in Indonesia. As a foreigner, you are not allowed to own or buy or purchase land or lots. You are not allowed to do that. In the Philippines, I know you can own a residence, for example, a condo, an apartment. You can buy it, you can own it, yeah. But the building, which sits, of course, on a piece of land, needs to be 60% owned by a Filipino, and then you also can own the residence, but you cannot own the building or the land, you know. So that's the thing in the Philippines. So in Indonesia, the same thing. You cannot own land unless you are married. Not even if you're married to an Indonesian girl. So you can just only lease in Indonesia. You know, you can lease for like, I think 30 years. You know, and then you can extend it for 20 more years and stuff like that. But as far as I know, in Indonesia, you can actually invest in real estate. That's possible. You can own buildings in Indonesia, but you cannot own the land. I don't know how it is in the Philippines. If you can invest in real estate in the Philippines, I don't know. But I know that many foreigners, especially American guys, yeah, they are married to Filipinas and they build a house, and of course the land where the house is sitting on belongs to the Filipina wife. She would probably own 60%, and then the husband earns 40%. But the 40% will not help you much when it comes to legal arguments and stuff like that. So much for building a house. Now, let's talk about dating, but I will not talk too much about it, because this is actually the purpose of my channel now, to do all these dating videos, and mainly I speak about Indonesian dating, right? So please check out my other videos, especially about dating in Indonesia. I have plenty. I cover many topics, but again, why I prefer the Philippines or Indonesia for dating. Again, I had my very first dating experiences almost 20 years ago with Filipinas and Indonesian women, and if you are looking for a feminine girl, a feminine woman who still has and owns feminine traits and characteristics and feminine values, yeah, who has feminine values, then the Philippines and Indonesia is the place for you to go. If you are fed up with dating overweight, green-haired, tattooed women who talk like a truck driver, as I always famously say, get out of these Western countries and move to the Philippines or Indonesia. Yeah? There you will find tons and heaps of gorgeous, charming, caring, pretty women who dress like a woman, who behave like a woman, who have hobbies like a woman, who like to be a woman, who want to dress up like a woman, who are proud to be women, yeah? Who are great, who can be very great companions, and who are also great in the house, in the household, for example, you know. They are proud of being a good cook, and they are proud of being great caretakers for their homes, you know. They are not getting annoyed when they have to clean the house, for example, you know. They are proud of their job. And this is one of the biggest differences. Many men, more and more men now, are considering moving to Southeast Asia and the Philippines and Indonesia. The Philippines and Indonesia are very similar in this regard when it comes to dating. The last thing I want to mention is the retirement visas. Of course, I'm not an expert in retiring in Indonesia or the Philippines, because I'm not retired yet. Yeah? I have not reached this official retirement age yet, but in the Philippines as far as I know, and again, there are many other videos out there with guys who retired already. You want to check out their videos, but as far as I know, just briefly, you can obtain a retirement visa in the Philippines. I know many guys that do it differently in the Philippines. You know, they just enter as a tourist and then extend and extend and extend and extend their visa and blah blah blah. But you actually can obtain an official retirement visa. But you have to be 50 years old, and you have to have a pension coming in. Yeah? So you see, you need stable income, and then I think you need to deposit like $10,000 on a government bank account, and your pension needs to be at least $800 a month, and then you can get a retirement visa. Or if you're not 50 years of age yet, let's say you are like 35, pretty young actually, you can still obtain a retirement visa, even if you are 35, but you have to deposit $50,000 on a government bank account. And of course, you must not have a criminal record or anything like that, you know. And then you actually also can officially retire in the Philippines with an official retirement visa if you are 35 years of age. That's actually great, right? I didn't know that. In Indonesia, it's similar. Indonesia offers retirement visas, but you have to be at least 55 years old, yeah. And also you have to have a pension coming in, very important. And the pension needs to be at least $18,000 per month, per year actually. Sorry, 18K per year, yeah. And you need to have a health insurance in Indonesia. You need to sign a rental agreement in Indonesia. With this visa, you have to also hire a maid or a domestic helper, and only certain countries can actually obtain this visa, but most of the European countries and the Western countries like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United States, no problem. You can obtain a visa for a retirement visa for Indonesia. So that's it. With that being said, I'm checking out for today, but before I do, again, so these are the two countries I will recommend for you for the reasons I just briefly mentioned here in this video. I try to be very brief because there is way more to say, but you can check out my other videos for that, you know. So again, still today, if I would have to choose between the Philippines or Indonesia, still very hard for me. It's really 50-50, you know. But both are great alternatives still today. Although other people have different experience and different preferences. So, and again, if you want to move to the Philippines and you know already that's your place, and congratulations, you made up your mind. If you need help and assistance with your visa stuff, immigration matters, retirement visas and all that kind of stuff, then please check out Filipino Visa. The link is in the description. You can check out their service and you can see for yourself if this is something you want to use in the future, which I highly recommend. So yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know your comments. Do you agree with me, or do you have another country you recommend in Southeast Asia? Or do you say, you know, the Philippines is crap and Indonesia sucks, you know, Thailand is the best, or no, Thailand is also overrated these days. Laos or Cambodia is the place to be. I know many expats or different expats have, of course, different preferences, and there's this Thailand fraction, and there's this Philippine fraction, and there's this Cambodia fraction, and they all swear on their country. It's okay, you know, I mean, Southeast Asia is big, there are plenty of countries, and you will find something for your own personal needs and requirements, hopefully. So checking out now, thanks for watching, and I'm gonna see you in one of my next videos. Take care, bye bye.